Hey everyone, this is Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. So I am going to make my own album for October Daily, and I wanted to share the process with you. I made a similar album for my family's everyday stories for Project Life, and I put it together in January, or I put it together to hold January through March. And then I was looking at my huge pile of these Ali Edwards envelopes and thinking, well, what can I do with these? And then I remembered, you know what? I already made one album and I need an album for October Daily. Why don't I just make my own? So the first step is taking the envelope and starting with down at the bottom where it's folded and kind of cutting down the middle of the envelope. So the middle of the seam almost. And then once you have it open flat, you have to take off these two pieces. Those are the trickiest part for me, getting those pieces to come off. But once they're off, you can rock and roll and get started on cutting out the size that you need to work with to make the album. I go with 7 by 8.25 inches, which is outside the page protector, and it works out really well because the flap, you just wind up cutting off the flap and not too much on the other side. So it actually works out really well. And the next step is going to be obviously cutting out my album pieces, and I am going to go ahead and just use scissors instead of my trimmer. For me, it doesn't need to be neat and perfect. I just want to be able to make my own album and see what I can come up with my envelopes, and I will just use binder rings. I am thinking of getting a, what's it called? A disc punch. I used to have one, like a really nice arc punch, like, you know, for Happy Planner and that kind of thing. And I have a million leftover discs from my Happy Planners. So I'm thinking about getting one of those. I had one. I don't know where it went, but I had one. So anyways, I could always do that and just do disc bound type pages, because that would be, you know, easier than binder rings, I think sometimes, because for me, the binder rings, the screws in the middle tend to fall apart. And that's really frustrating because I don't always have the equipment to put it back together. So I don't know, that's something that I've been thinking about as well for my albums. And I'm just using this white piece of paper, as you can see, to kind of eyeball the size. Now that I have my two pieces, I want to make this a really festive cover because it's for October Daily. And these word sentiments are already in a circle shape. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just paint them, see what happens. And I wind up painting it and it doesn't wreck the word. Like, you can still see the word. And I am going light with the paint, but you can still see the words and it is turning out fantastic. I'm going to do a few words here and there, and I have two different shades of orange. One's kind of like a bright orange, another one's has more of the yellow tones in it as well. I also noticed as I'm making this, because I noticed that on the left-hand side, the Love Life, I thought that was going to be my back portion, but in the end, I realized that would make a really good front cover, so I'm going to turn that into my front cover, and you will see that later on. So as I'm painting these, I try to keep in mind the different words that I want to use and emphasize. So like beautiful moment, today's stories, my story, and this was hard. I think that was one of them, but just different phrases in the circles that kind of help tell the story of October. And I just cannot get over how awesome this is turning out. And it has opened up my mind to other ideas of how I can use more of these envelopes for different seasons. At least I'm thinking, and that's what counts, right? I also made two of my own circles, on one on the left side and also the right side, so that way it was kind of like custom circles. I do have to figure out a way to cover up that hole, and like I said, I had, pieces left over when I cut apart the envelopes, and I had a month that said October, and I thought that October could fit for the O, but it didn't work. The size was too big. So then I grabbed a piece of the envelope and covered up the love, and now I am going to put the October right in the middle and also paint the October. So now it's kind of saying October life, and that's what I was talking about earlier, that I feel very clever that I came up with this way to fill in that spot right there where the clasp was. I also really wanted to make these pumpkins, so I used one of my paint markers. I just get these at Walmart, nothing fancy, but I use them to make stems, brown little stems all over the pumpkins, and that took it to another level, and I'm just having the best time painting and figuring out, how I can decorate this and make it look really festive. I will say that a funny side story about making this, I thought about adding in some vines, but knew I'm not someone that can draw. And then I went to look up pumpkin pictures, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? I don't need to draw the vines, because once you cut the pumpkin off the vine, there is no vine. And then I thought, hey, Sabrina, why don't you just add some marker dots? You guys, I don't know if that was such a great idea, because none of my markers were working. And then I tried a gold pen that I had, and that didn't really show up. And I was like, this is not working, and I think I've just about ruined this album cover. What is happening? So I get out some yellow, and I decide to use the top of the paintbrush to do dots and kind of cover up the gold paint marks that I had. I also thought about doing Nuvo drops, but I do know that Nuvo drops, when they dry, they become dimensional, which would be fine because this is kind of October, Halloween. I could have a dimensional bumpy book. Why not? But rubbing between other albums and wear and tear, it might not hold up so well. So that's why I didn't do the Nuvo drops and just decided to go with these bright yellow kind of dots all over my project. I think they turned out okay. If I did another album like this, would I add the dots again? I don't think so. Probably not. I would have probably just left the pumpkins. But overall, I think that this is just fantastic, and I feel absolutely so smart. Now, to make sure that it is really protected and a sturdy cover, I took some double-sided adhesive tape and added it to each of these pages, and then got some chipboard that I had laying around and put each of the covers right on top of the chipboard. That way I knew it was not so flimsy, and I knew that it had a really thick cover for the front and the back. And so it's going to come together so good. I just love it. I'm loving making my own albums. And again, if I get the disc punch, which, you guys, like I said, I had one. I don't know where it could go. I mean, it's a huge thing that I had and no idea where it went. So I peel the double-sided tape and I go ahead and adhere it to the back of the chipboard, and then I'm going to use my paper trimmer to help me trim it. It is very thick, so it may not work so well with my trimmer, and it didn't, but I'm going to be able to get most of the chipboard trimmed, and then I'll just use the scissors for the other sections that I need. And once I have it all trimmed, I can go ahead and add in the binder rings. I'd love to know in the comment section how your October daily is going. So far, I have, I think, only 2 stories. I think I've only done 2 stories, and then I have kind of a table of contents, and I will share that in another video later this week. But yeah, 2 stories, one about me currently, and then the other one is about decor. Just really taking this very easy this year and not putting pressure on myself. And also, my kids are getting older, so it's a little bit trickier to think of, festive things. But last night we watched The Nightmare Before Christmas, which was really awesome, and we all enjoyed that. So I'm sure I will make a story out of that. I did punch 6 total holes, or no, I had 6 holes, but I decided to only go with 2. And then I will just put in the binder rings, and there's my album. And again, I have different size binder rings, and I can use those if my album gets more chunky. And now you can see the inside, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing this come together and come to life. I would love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you're new to my channel. Have a great day. Bye.